You're rich!
If he could just find himself again, be the man that I knew him to be, the man that I know he can be.
No! Oops.
What the hell, Kev?
It's a fake.
So how much do you need?
Not a whole lot. Only around $8 billion.
8 billion?
How much?
About $5,000 a bottle.
Where is all this money coming from?
Why do you doubt my judgment? Renee raised her eyebrow as she glared at Kelly. Before our previous leader passed away, he entrusted you, Ariana, and Luna to me. As your superior, you must obey my orders. But I'm no match for Kevin. Kelly lowered her head and tightly gripped the hem of her shirt. Her eyes were filled with conflicted emotions. You must do as I say and go to the Brown area. That is a direct order, so I don't want to have to repeat myself again, Renee demanded. During Kevin's previous fights against Clarissa, Clyde, and Sebastian, Renee had clearly noticed Kelly's emotional fluctuation. Although she didn't know much about Kelly's connection to Kevin, how could a dignified member of the Union have anything to do with an enemy like him? Seeing that this would complicate things later on, she deliberately wanted Kelly to fight Kevin in order to test where her true loyalty lay. I want to remind you that Kevin is wearing protective body armor. Apart from his head, there's no other place on his body that can be damaged by swords or daggers, Renee warned her in a cold voice. Hearing that, Kelly suddenly raised her head and looked at Renee with a face full of fear. Didn't this mean that Kevin had to be killed? But how could she bear to do something like that? Kevin had helped her countless times before, and even gave her a few $1 billion worth of power pills. Soon, the rest period had already come to an end, and the final round of the competition was about to begin. Just as the host was about to announce the names of the finalists, Renee suddenly interrupted. There will be a last-minute substitution competing for the Union. This attracted the criticism of many people. Changing contestants on the spot was against the competition's rules. Director Silver, this doesn't conform to the rules, the referee explained haltingly. Rules? Do you want the members of the Union to be injured in the competition because of their lack of stamina? Besides, your boss, Mr. Ford, didn't object to this at all. Do you want me to call him over here? Renee asked with a condescending tone. The referee was merely a new professor at the Healing Arts School. He didn't dare to offend an esteemed leader of the Union and risk losing his job. Kelly, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and enter the arena. Under Renee's instructions, Kelly had no choice but to comply as she quickly grabbed her sword and walked towards the Brown area. The host of the competition took a deep breath and announced, "The final round of the competition will feature Kevin Williams, representing the Healing Arts School versus Kelly Emmett of the Union." As Kelly entered the Brown area, Kevin frowned slightly as he looked at her. He then turned his head and looked up at the platform. He figured that the last-minute change had deliberately been made by Renee just to target him. Is this the so-called righteous faction? Kevin disdainfully thought to himself as he shook his head. As he channeled the energy inside his body, he noticed that his strength level now was much weaker compared to yesterday. Despite having taken the Night King's crystal pill and 2 supreme pills earlier, it was obvious that all the injuries and damage he had accumulated since the night before had not yet fully healed. You can leave now. I don't want to fight with a friend, Kevin advised Kelly in a low voice. I can't, and I won't go down without putting up a fight, Kelly replied as her body trembled. On top of everything that they had been through, she had been watching all of Kevin's battles intently today. What chance did she have against him? Then do you think you can defeat me? Kevin had never expected the Union to win the competition. He hadn't fought anyone from either the Healers Academy of the West or the Northern Institute for Natural Healing. Also, if I may ask, what does the Union stand for? It's such a short and cryptic name compared to the other schools. Shut up. Do you have a death wish or something? The Union is one of the top 10 organizations, and Director Silver is definitely someone that you can't afford to provoke, Kelly warned. Meanwhile, Kevin's friends began to discuss this awkward matchup as well. Is it just me, or is the union's leader intentionally targeting Kevin? Dalton asked Penny and Mackenzie. What a d***. I can't believe she would do such a thing, Mackenzie fumed. At first, Kevin's ability to enter the final round had given her a glimmer of hope to save her grandfather, but she didn't expect the union to be so shameless in pitting him against Kelly. Penny let out a long sigh and reached out to hug Mackenzie, wanting to comfort her. The situation was so dire, but all they could do now was to watch and wait for the final outcome. The fate of this matchup should be a win for any of the top 10 organizations. Anyway, the final victor will be the one who will be sent to kill that thief Roger Knott. It might as well be a cop with lots of experience. So for old time's sake, why don't you just forfeit? I don't want to have to fight you for this, Kelly implored. On the way to the Brown area, Kelly had already come to a decision. Although Kevin had helped her many times, she had been with the union since she was a teenager. Being with them for more than 10 years already, she practically grew up with them and had been taught many things by her mentor, Renee. Thus, her friendship with Kevin seemed very small in comparison, and she was willing to sacrifice that in order to prove her loyalty, as well as to make a name for herself as the one who killed Roger Knott. Besides, if Kevin agreed to forfeit, Kelly figured that she would find an opportunity after the competition to make amends and treat him to a meal as compensation. Kelly, come on now. Did you really have the nerve to say those words? Then why don't you give me the chance instead? Anyway, you already have the union behind you, and there will be more opportunities for you to become famous in the future, Kevin retorted. So you're saying that there's no room for negotiation and you insist on fighting for it? Kelly asked as she held her sword tightly and pointed it at Kevin. I never imagined that you would one day point a sword at me like this. Kevin had yet to draw the night dagger from his pocket. Even at this awkward moment, he still treated Kelly as a friend. I don't know what misunderstanding you have with Director Silver, but as a friend, I advise you to apologize to her. Although you've proven yourself to be a worthy competitor today, there are still a lot of people in this world who are stronger and more experienced than you, Kelly advised him. When he heard her say that, Kevin suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. If you want to fight, then just say so. Why do you have to say such things to pretend that you're being nice? You're only fooling yourself. Overhearing their exchange, Sherwin Blair suddenly stood up and shouted loudly, Kevin, what kind of a man are you? You're actually going to attack my fiancé? I thought you were just a useless son-in-law, but it seems that you're a backstabbing friend as well. Kevin, even if you win, you'll still be a piece of trash for taking advantage of a respected police officer in our community, Mike sneered. First it was Clarissa. Now you're about to fight Officer Emmett? Do you think that beating up women will make you more of a man? Lionel fumed. Don't underestimate Officer Emmett. She's very strong and as tough as nails. I hope she humiliates you in front of everyone, Luther added. As always, Kevin didn't care what the crowd thought of him. He simply blocked out all the noise and let their voices drown each other out. At the same time, Wayne had walked to Renee's side. I can see right through your plan inserting Kelly into the mix. What kind of hatred do you have for Kevin? Director Silver slowly turned her head when she heard this. She gave Wayne a deep look and said with a cold smile, What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. Luna has already participated in 3 exhausting rounds of fighting. She's already depleted her strength, and I had to step in to protect her. When Wayne simply raised his eyebrow at her, Renee continued, At the end of the day, I just want the best possible chance to kill Roger Knott, and I feel that the Union has much better fighters to offer compared to Kevin. Besides, he's just new to all of this, so I don't trust him one bit to get the job done. If you don't want your prize student to badly get beaten and humiliated, you can just stop the competition right now and hand Roger over to us. When the surrounding leaders heard this, they couldn't help but gasp in surprise. The Healing Arts School's connection to the top 10 organizations was really a strange one. Although it was jointly founded by the 10 organizations, in the years that had passed, the school had long since broken away from their control and become an independent organization. Unlike the other organizations where students would go on to take bigger roles internally once they had graduated, students who graduated from the Healing Arts School would usually move on to join any of the top 10 organizations, typically as herbalist professors or martial arts instructors to their students. And even if Wayne remained affiliated with the Southwest School of Healing as an enforcer, he separated his roles and responsibilities in both schools as much as he could. Still, leaders from the other organizations were afraid of the Southwest School of Healing for that very reason. However, given how powerful Wayne was, it had been many years since anyone dared to speak to him like this within their circle. In the past, all of the leaders knew that Renee had a violent temper, but they didn't know that she was actually this fiery. "Are you implying that my school's students aren't good enough compared to yours?" Harley Shepard slowly stood up and questioned her. He couldn't take Renee's insults any longer. Was there going to be a battle in the stands before Kevin and Kelly even had a chance to fight? Renee Silver had sent Kelly Emmett as a last-minute substitute, pitting her against Kevin during the final round. Despite feeling conflicted, Kelly eventually put her loyalty to the Union first. When Kevin refused her plea to forfeit, they had no choice but to accept their upcoming battle. When Wayne Ford questioned Renee's motives against Kevin, she claimed that the Union had much better candidates to kill Roger Knott, urging Wayne to just hand him over to her. Not being able to take Renee's insults to the Healing Arts School any longer, Harley Shepard stepped in to defend his students. The atmosphere on the big platform suddenly became quite tense as Harley walked towards Renee, who was standing next to Wayne. Were they trying to put pressure on the Union? "Wayne, Harley, what's the meaning of this? Didn't I tell you that Kevin did all kinds of evil things? Are you too blinded by the talent that he's shown today? We have to get rid of him for the greater good," Renee insisted. When Renee saw Wayne and Harley getting irked by this, she continued, "Although the two of you are a powerful duo, can you really go against the rest of us?" Wayne replied loudly, "If you really think the Union is better than everyone else, then don't drag the other organizations down with you. And if you have nothing better to do than to disrespect the competition, then I think it would be best for you to leave right now. Otherwise, don't prevent the competition from continuing." When Wayne finished speaking, the eyes of all the other leaders opened wide. Is the Union deliberately going to argue with the Healing Arts School? Do you really think our school is afraid of the Union? Harley had reached his boiling point with Renee, shattering years of peaceful coexistence. However, just as Harley was about to attack Renee, Wayne stopped him. Renee finally agreed. "Maybe you're right. Only time will tell which of us gets the last laugh." When they heard this, everyone was shocked. They could sense a possible war brewing between the two sides and felt that today's confrontation was just the beginning. "From today onwards, all members who are affiliated with the Union will be expelled from the Healing Arts School. We also won't be hiring any of their members moving forward." Wayne then turned around and addressed the two combatants. "Kevin, Kelly, listen up. Either of you can admit defeat now, otherwise you'll have to fight to the death." Wayne's ultimatum caused everyone within earshot to panic. Even those who had wished to get rid of Kevin couldn't believe it. "Is this for real? Are you really going to become enemies with the Union?" Paul Vaughn was shocked. "Didn't we agree that the winner of the competition would be determined according to the referee's ruling? Why did it suddenly become a life or death battle?" Nadia asked with concern. "Oh my God, what did our dean say just now?" The Healing Arts School students began to murmur amongst themselves. For a moment, they wondered if there was something wrong with their ears. Until today, the relationship between the top 10 organizations and the Healing Arts School had always been very good. What now? "Did you hear what your dean said? If you forfeit now, we can still be friends," Kelly said coldly. "I've promised some people that I'll win this competition, so unfortunately I have to honor my word to them," Kevin answered seriously. He'd promised Mackenzie he'd save her grandfather, so he had to be true to his word. All of a sudden, Kelly rushed towards Kevin. When she arrived in front of him, she waved her sword and attacked. With a loud clang, the sharp sword brushed against his body, generating a burst of intense sparks. Lily and Dalton, who were concerned about Kevin, immediately stood up from their seats to check on him. Thankfully, Kevin had been wearing his body armor, and when they saw that he wasn't injured, they both heaved a sigh of relief. "I just noticed that Kevin is wearing some sort of powerful body armor." A greedy look flashed across Paul's eyes. "I'm curious as to what type of material it's made of." "You should be careful of what you say, Paul. Didn't you see what happened to the Union? Do you want to end up banished like them?" Jeffrey Bowie nudged him and tried to warn him. Then they both looked at Renee. She was watching the fight with her fists clenched. Her face was filled with anger. This wasn't how she'd envisioned things turning out when the competition started. Her relationship with the Healing Arts School had suddenly become damaged, and now that the entire Union had been banished, she felt that she'd let her entire organization down. In her mind, this was all Kevin's fault. Kelly must kill Kevin at all costs. Only when that dies will the Union's losses be minimized, Renee thought to herself. When nobody was looking, she casually threw something towards the arena. Back at the brown area, Kevin was continuously dodging each strike from Kelly's sword. Up until then, he was hesitant about fighting her. Did one of them really have to die? But just as Kevin was about to make a move, he got stung in the face and neck multiple times. Thinking that a swarm of bees had just randomly flown by, he quickly brushed them off. However, as he winced from the pain, he could also feel a strong force pulling him. A second later, he found himself involuntarily moving towards the sharp blade of Kelly's sword. The people watching in the crowd didn't understand why Kevin was doing this. "What the heck is that do?" Mike was confused. "Does he think his head is harder than a sword?" Lionel let out a laugh. "What a dumb way to die," Luther sneered. Meanwhile, Harley, Wayne, and even Nadia slapped their armrests and stood up from their seats almost at the same time. They all sensed that something was wrong, but even if they wanted to save Kevin, it would be too late for them to intervene as it was all happening so quickly. A bitter smile appeared on Kevin's face. Is this how I'll die? Amidst the uncertainty of his fate, Kevin closed his eyes. At that moment, he felt that time had slowed down and his entire life flashed before his eyes. Countless memories from the past suddenly swept through his mind. However, as time passed, the excruciating pain that Kevin was expecting never came. When he slowly opened his eyes, he was surprised to see the Night King standing in front of him. As for Kelly, she had been sent flying towards the other end of the arena. Kevin could see her using her sword for support as she got up from the ground. "What are you doing here?" Kevin asked the Night King curiously. "Instead of asking me that, you should take a look at your own situation." The Night King's expression was very serious. Before Kevin could react, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Feeling pain and discomfort all over his face and neck, he quickly realized that he had been pierced with tiny spikes. The blood loss was making him dizzy, and as he started pulling them out, he realized they were magnetic. They started attaching themselves outside the pocket where he kept the night dagger. No wonder he was being pulled towards Kelly's sword just a moment ago. Suspecting that foul play was involved, he immediately looked up at the platform to find Renee. Before he could, he fell unconscious from all his blood loss. "Who are you? How dare you cause trouble here?" Wayne shouted as he and the other leaders ran to the arena. "Your contestant may not be good enough to win on her own merit, but what gives you the right to make a sneak attack on my student? Using such a despicable method, how can you still call yourself an honorable leader?" The Night King disdainfully looked at the school leaders trying to find the culprit. "What sneak attack? Do you have any proof? It was obvious to me that Kevin was running toward Kelly's sword of his own free will. Perhaps he just wanted to swiftly kill himself to make things easier for everyone," Renee retorted in a cold voice. However, there was fear in her eyes. She had no idea who this mysterious man was. Hearing their conversation, the surrounding crowd didn't dare to speak. Fearing for their lives, they froze in their seats, waiting for the scene to unfold. What a glib tongue you have. I should teach you a lesson. After saying this, the Night King suddenly gave Renee a powerful shove that sent her flying across the arena. She landed right next to Kelly and spat out a mouthful of blood. The leaders from the top 10 organizations were even more afraid when they saw the Night King up close. Their bodies became extremely tense. A couple of them drew their weapons but didn't want to provoke a potentially powerful enemy. "Who are you exactly?" Wayne braced himself and asked again. "You've hurt my student badly. As his mentor, I have to protect and avenge him," the Night King replied coldly. At this point, the crowd couldn't help but react. "That man is Kevin's mentor? How come I've never heard of him before?" Lionel wondered. "How can a useless son-in-law like him afford a private mentor?" Mike sneered. "It's not easy to strike fear in people like them. Who is that man?" Luther was curious. While this was going on, Lily left her seat and quickly ran to Kevin. She picked him up from the ground and started crying. "The top 10 organizations are just evil people who are vying for power, fame, and wealth. I can't believe that they'd resort to doing such shameless things just to get ahead." Mackenzie gritted her teeth as Dalton, Penny, and Phoebe all shook their heads in disgust. Knowing that they were partly to blame for what had happened, Wayne and Harley were afraid to come forward. Who would have thought that Kevin had such a powerful mentor? Meanwhile, Jeffrey and the other leaders focused all their attention on the Night King. Despite having strength in numbers, they knew that he wasn't someone to be taken lightly. If they were all taken down by a single person in front of this crowd, they would certainly lose the respect of everyone there. "What exactly is this greater good that you keep talking about? Are you simply in the business of bullying others just to keep yourselves in power?" The Night King's fearless eyes swept again across the group. "Answer my question. Who are you?" Standing alongside the other leaders, Wayne suddenly asked loudly. "I don't have time to waste with you people. I'm going to take my student away now, so don't try to stop me, unless you wish to die." Then the Night King turned around and stepped in front of Lily. "I'm Kevin's mentor. Let me have him." The Night King didn't give Lily a chance to reply as he snatched Kevin from her arms. He then took out a small pouch from his pocket and applied some clotting powder onto his face and neck to seal his wounds. Otherwise, Kevin would have died from blood loss before even leaving the arena. Although the Night King really wanted to avenge Kevin, the most important thing right now was to get him somewhere safe and treat him. Besides, he figured that as long as the top 10 organizations existed, he could always have his revenge later on. Soon after, the Night King left the arena with Kevin in his arms. As Wayne and the other leaders looked on, none of them had the courage to stop him. After all, the Night King's previous warning had been quite ominous. When they were both gone from everyone's sight, the school's leaders let out a sigh of relief. "Everyone, I hereby announce that the winner of this competition is Kevin. However, because he was seriously injured, we can't proceed to the final stage right now," Wayne declared. The expressions of the school's leaders changed in an instant. The competition had attracted so much attention and featured contestants from the top 10 organizations because the final victor would have the opportunity to kill Roger Knott. But now, with Wayne's decision, wouldn't today's events be cut short? The other leaders would have none of this. "What are you saying? Kelly never lost. She was still standing at the end of the fight while Kevin was practically unconscious and needed his mentor to save him," Renee argued. "Besides, didn't you say that the competition wouldn't end until one of them died? If it wasn't for that mysterious man suddenly appearing, Kevin would have surely died by now. In that case, Kelly deserves to be declared the victor." "Renee's right, Wayne. You're being too biased towards the students of the Healing Arts School. Why don't we ask the referee to make the call instead?" Paul remarked. "A gentleman must always keep his word, Wayne, but don't treat our organizations like mere pawns just so you can crown your own student at the end," Jeffrey implored. "Just admit that the competition was rigged from the very start. Why did you announce Kevin as the winner when their fight ended so abruptly? You need to give everyone a good explanation," Renee demanded. "The battle did indeed come to an abrupt end, but let me ask you, Kevin clearly had the upper hand, easily dodging Kelly's strikes. All of a sudden, he gets pulled towards Kelly's sword, but starts bleeding profusely without even touching the blade. I assume you know the reason better than any of us. Those tiny magnetic spikes look pretty familiar. Isn't the owner of the company that produces them a member of the union? Wayne accused her fearlessly. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop spreading baseless lies. Renee adamantly denied any involvement. If it weren't for your antics, that powerful and mysterious person wouldn't have come here to threaten us. Anyway, I won't say anything else, but I'm standing by what I said earlier. The Healing Arts School will no longer accommodate any members of the union, so you can leave my school immediately. Wayne smiled. Everyone was shocked that the mysterious man who saved Kevin's life was his mentor. When Kevin lost consciousness, the Night King threatened everyone. He then sealed Kevin's wounds before taking him away for further treatment. After declaring Kevin the competition's winner, Wayne defended his decision by blaming Renee's actions for drawing the Night King's wrath. When she denied it, Wayne banished the union from his school. Nadia then revealed the Herbalist Society's interest in Kevin and showed support for the Healing Arts School. None of the other leaders dared to go against them. At that point, none of the other leaders dared to argue with Wayne. Seeing that nobody else was going to side with her, Renee angrily called her fellow union members to leave. As they stormed off, she sneered, "You haven't seen the last of us. Remember this day." When they were gone, Nadia suddenly spoke. Everyone, I have a few words as well that I wanted to share. While we still don't know much about his mysterious mentor, Kevin is someone that the Herbalist Society is very interested in. Before anyone could reply, Nadia continued. Furthermore, the Herbalist Society and the Healing Arts School are partners, so from now on, the union will never get another herbal pill from us. I hope the rest of you won't cause any trouble so that we can all continue to coexist in peace. And if you ever decide to pull off something like what the union did, consider the consequences carefully. Wayne and the others looked at each other in mutual understanding. Even if the other leaders had their reservations about being associated with the Healing Arts School after today's events, they still provided competent graduates to work for each other, so they had no plans to risk cutting ties with them. Moreover, who would dare go against the Herbalist Society unless they didn't want to get another pill from them in the future? It was much better to have both organizations as allies than enemies. After the closing ceremony, each of the school leaders took their members and left, and the Healing Arts students followed their professors to their respective classrooms. But what about Kevin? When Lily returned home, she sat on the couch in a daze. Her eyes had already been red and swollen from crying so much, but she still couldn't help but shed more tears after recalling what had happened to Kevin. My precious daughter, why are you crying? Shouldn't you be happy if that piece of Dorothy coldly remarked as she sat by Lily's side and drank an espresso. Mom, how can you say that? Kevin is my husband. Lily sobbed even more as she replied. Lily, are you kidding me? That good-for-nothing husband of yours only knows how to eat, sleep, and wait for his death. Once he's dead, you'll be free to marry someone new, Dorothy exclaimed. When Lily didn't reply, Dorothy continued. A beautiful woman like you deserves someone who will finally treat you right. Don't worry, I'll definitely find you a rich and handsome husband in no time. After Lily had called her mother to tell her about what happened at the Healing Arts School, Dorothy was elated, especially when she heard that Kevin was on the verge of death. And as soon as the call ended, Dorothy couldn't help but jump for joy, as if she'd just won the lottery. Ever since Kevin came into their lives, Dorothy had always felt sorry for Lily, thinking that any man would be an immediate upgrade over her useless son-in-law. However, no matter how many times Dorothy tried to set Lily up with a better prospect, her daughter would always choose to stay with Kevin. Now that he was finally about to die, she could finally find another man that Lily wouldn't be able to refuse. With everything suddenly falling into place, how could she not be overjoyed? Mom, you don't have to look for someone anymore. I don't want to marry another person. If Kevin dies, I'll live on as his widow. Lily's tone was very firm. Nonsense! What are you talking about? Do you really love that so much? Dorothy's expression suddenly changed. Anyway, I don't care. As soon as he dies, I'll immediately find a new husband for you, and I won't take no for an answer. Lily simply rolled her eyes and sighed. Why was her mother so stubborn? Besides, I'm getting old, and you still haven't given me a grandchild. With a new husband, you can finally get pregnant. The more Dorothy spoke, the more energized she became. And with this last thought, she suddenly felt the urge to go out and find a man for Lily right then and there. Mom, it's getting late. You should go back to your room and rest. Lily didn't want to continue arguing with her mother. Why don't you get some sleep too? Aren't you going to class tomorrow? Dorothy was concerned for Lily's health. Lily opened her mouth to respond but decided not to say anything and simply nodded. She wanted to wait by the couch so that if Kevin came home, she would immediately know that he was alive and well. Despite knowing in her heart that she was just deceiving herself, she had to hold on to something in order to cope. Still, Lily remained hopeful that Kevin would survive. After all, he'd been rescued by his mentor. And although nobody seemed to know his identity, his convincing words and the way he sealed Kevin's wounds made her believe that his mentor could truly save him. Lily, don't tell me you plan to wait for Kevin here. You have to go back to your room to get a good night's rest. If Kevin wants to, then let him alone. I don't want your health to suffer because of him. Dorothy spoke very seriously. Why are you always so mean to Kevin? Although he didn't have a steady job for years, he's always had great respect for you. And right now, he's actually doing pretty well and has started making more of an effort to take care of us both. Lily defended Kevin. Didn't he embarrass me so many times in front of my friends and family? He's barely done anything right. And I'm being generous when I say that. Dorothy scoffed loudly. Anyway, it's useless to keep talking about him. No matter what you say, I'll never let Kevin back in our family. After saying that, Dorothy turned around and went upstairs. In that instant, she had indeed thought about some of Kevin's benefits. But so what? In her eyes, Kevin was just a useless son-in-law who came to live in their house and had been freeloading for 3 years. To her, the best possible thing he could do was to die and be forgotten. Meanwhile, in the Anderson family's mansion, Phoebe had been staring at her coffee mug for some time. The mug was actually empty, so clearly her mind was elsewhere. Seeing her like this, Truman sighed as he sat next to his daughter without saying anything. What happened in the Healing Arts School today had caused a lot of buzz in all of the other herbalist schools and organizations throughout Chicago. No one had thought that the so-called useless son-in-law would end up defeating some of the top 10 organization's best students in a martial arts competition. Unfortunately, Kevin's life was now hanging by a thread after battling a member of the union. And if it wasn't for his mentor swooping in to save him at the last second, he probably would have died on the spot. Although Kevin's life or death didn't have as much impact on Truman compared to his daughter, he could only sigh at the potential loss of a genius in the world of antique appraisers, one who had helped his business many times. Meanwhile, Phoebe was thinking deeply about Kevin. When she returned home, she felt like she'd lost her soul after seeing him in such a bloody and weakened state. Phoebe, don't be too sad. After all, Kevin might not be dead. Didn't you say that he was rescued by his mentor? Truman frowned as he comforted her. Dad, do you actually believe what you just said? I also hope that nothing will happen to Kevin, but you weren't there when it happened. His entire face was covered in blood. Phoebe didn't even finish her words before she started bawling her eyes out as she pictured it in her mind. Phoebe, don't cry. I can't bear to see you like this. Truman frowned even more as he worried about his daughter. However, even after consoling her for a few minutes, Phoebe still wouldn't stop crying. This made Truman's forehead wrinkle as he tried to find a way to help. Do you really want to save Kevin? Truman seemed to have made a big decision. Yes, of course I want to save him. Phoebe sobbed silently. Are you willing to give up everything for him? If that's the case, then I have an idea, Truman suggested. Dad, what do you mean? Phoebe suddenly stopped crying and looked at her father in disbelief. Apart from owning Anderson jewelry, she knew very well that her father was just an ordinary person. Truman wasn't an expert in making herbal medicine and didn't align himself with any herbalist organizations either. How could he possibly save Kevin? At the same time, Phoebe also understood that her father wasn't a person who said things lightly. He must truly have thought of something. Truman slowly leaned back on the couch. He seemed to be conflicted. He really thought he could keep the idea to himself, but seeing Phoebe like this, it seemed like he had no other choice but to tell her. Phoebe, you probably never knew this, but 10 years ago you were almost set to marry a man named Jared Hayes. At the time, his father was a loyal customer at Anderson Jewelry. However, the business was struggling to stay afloat. In exchange for a large donation, we made a handshake deal for the two of you to marry. But before the deal could be finalized, I backed out at the last minute. I never told you because I felt so ashamed about it, Truman explained. I never knew the business was struggling that much. Phoebe's eyes grew wide when she heard this. Back then, she was still studying in France as a college senior, so she rarely got to fly home for a visit. When she started working for Anderson Jewelry after college, the business had already recovered. Truman continued. Anyway, although the Hayes family is the second most prominent family in Detroit, Jared was known to be arrogant, self-centered, immoral, and bad-tempered, so as your father, I really didn't want you to marry him once I found out. Eventually, I was able to buy and sell enough rare antiques to pay off all our debts, and within a year, the business was thriving once again. Still, I feel guilty about having considered that offer without your consent. I understand, but what does their family have to do with me saving Kevin? Phoebe asked in confusion. Based on how you describe Kevin's condition, he must have lost too much blood from multiple punctures to his face and neck. While his wounds may have already clotted, his veins and arteries are likely still damaged, and this can cause further complications if left untreated. The Hayes family has long been known to produce the occasional rejuvenation pill, whose medicinal properties should be able to repair all of Kevin's damaged veins and arteries in no time. However, its ingredients are incredibly hard to find, so outside of the family, they'll only give it in exchange for something they want. Jared's still single. You know what? Just forget about it. Truman ended abruptly, immediately regretting that he'd suggested it in the first place. Phoebe knew that if she wanted to save Kevin, she needed the rejuvenation pill, and based on her father's words, she now knew exactly what it would cost. How willing was she to sacrifice herself for him? After a few minutes, Phoebe walked over to her father and sat down beside him on the couch. Her eyes were filled with tears. However, her tone was extremely firm. Dad, can you help me contact the Hayes family? If they can give me the rejuvenation pill, then I'm willing to marry Jared. Phoebe, no. As your father, I can't let you make that mistake. You'd surely end up miserable for the rest of your life. I know you want to save Kevin, but you have to put yourself first. You'd be giving up your career, your freedom, and everything else that you have for an unworthy cause. Truman stood up from the couch and begged his daughter not to do it. Kevin has a special talent in antique appraisal. He'll surely be an asset to Anderson Jewelry for years and decades to come. More than I could ever be, Phoebe replied. But even if he's the best appraiser we've ever seen, so what? It's not worth losing my daughter over. Besides, don't forget that Kevin is still Lily's husband. Why are you so willing to sacrifice everything for a married man? He'll never be able to reciprocate your love for him. Truman shook his head. Phoebe slowly raised her head and looked at her father through teary eyes. If my mother had listened to my grandfather, would I even be here? Phoebe's hands tightly gripped the corner of her clothes. Truman sat back on the couch as if he'd suffered a heavy blow to his heart. His old face was filled with wistfulness as he thought about his late wife. Back then, he was just an unknown brat, while Phoebe's mother was the beautiful young daughter of her prestigious family. The love between the two naturally drew opposition from everyone, but in the end, Phoebe's mother stubbornly chose to marry him, bringing him a lot of the wealth and fame. When he thought about it, he knew that Phoebe was right and no longer tried to stop her. Phoebe continued, Dad, I know you're only trying to look out for my best interest. I also know that I'm being pretty irrational, but you know what? Love makes you do crazy things. And if Kevin I'll never forgive myself for as long as I live." Truman stared at his daughter in a daze. He suddenly saw how much she was like her mother. "Dad, you know I've never begged you for anything since I was young. Just this once, I'm begging you. Please help me with this, okay?" Phoebe pleaded with tears in her voice. Truman quietly got up from the couch and walked into his study. He was about to make an important call. 2 days passed very quickly, and Kevin had yet to reappear in public. During that time, all kinds of rumors and conspiracies about his life and death had spread all over Chicago. At the Healing Arts School, Wayne Ford and Harley Shepard didn't stop their students from speculating. After all, it was unknown whether Kevin was alive or dead. 5 more days passed. By then, Williams Media had suffered heavy losses. Due to all the uncertainty surrounding the condition of its CEO, many of their artists and business partners decided to terminate their affiliation with the company. They wanted to get out of their contracts so badly that they didn't care about the sky-high penalties this entailed. When news of this broke, it affected the nerves of many investors, causing Williams Media's stock price to drop to an all-time low. If not for Mitchell Cook and the others bailing the company out, it might have been forced to declare bankruptcy. At the same time, another piece of explosive news was spreading. The only daughter of Truman Anderson, Phoebe, was set to marry the Hayes family's eldest son, Jared, in Detroit. This was something that nobody had expected. Meanwhile, inside Kevin's apartment at Corwin Tower, the Night King was looking out the window. Even though it was already autumn, the skies were gloomy, and you could hear thunder. The Night King slowly took out a golden pill as he approached Kevin, who was asleep in his bed. "Just hang in there, Kevin. I've finally concocted a golden pill to help you recover. When you wake up, you have to keep fighting. Don't give up, otherwise this will all be for nothing." When he finished speaking, the Night King put the pill into Kevin's mouth. 3 seconds later, Kevin's pale skin suddenly returned to its natural complexion as a warm glow spread through his body. At the same time, Phoebe looked out her window at the dark clouds in the sky. She seemed a lot more haggard than ever. 2 days before, the Hayes family had sent the rejuvenation pill to her. In exchange, both families had agreed that the Anderson-Hayes wedding would be held on the 15th of the following month, which was about 20 days from today. But now there was another tricky problem that Phoebe hadn't accounted for. While she now had the rejuvenation pill, she didn't know where Kevin was. "Kevin, I can save you. Where are you?" Phoebe kept thinking in her heart. Truman, who was standing at her bedroom door, let out a long sigh and quietly turned around to walk downstairs. "Kevin, you don't know how lucky you are. In exchange for saving your life, my daughter's happiness will be ruined forever." Truman lamented as he clenched his fists tightly. Back at the apartment at Corwin Tower, the Night King looked at Kevin with a satisfied smile on his face. Even though Kevin was still unconscious, the Night King could sense that the golden pill was working. In the blink of an eye, another week had passed. Lily, who was still feeling exhausted, had just woken up from her nap and walked into the living room with her eyes barely open. Suddenly, Lily was shocked to see Kevin, as her eyes widened immediately. Just like old times, he was standing in front of the dining table, skillfully setting up the tableware. Lily cried out and immediately ran over to hug Kevin from behind. "Kevin, where have you been? It's been 2 weeks." Kevin then turned around and let Lily's head rest on his chest. As she silently cried, Kevin showed a faint smile on his face and gently patted her back. "It's all right, Lily. Everything's in the past now." Kevin comforted her in a soft voice. He had actually woken up from his coma about 5 days ago, but the Night King insisted that he should stay in his apartment for a few more days to let the golden pill's effects take full effect. Now he was not only fully recovered, but he even felt better than ever. After some time, Lily eventually stopped crying. She slowly looked up and asked, "Did Phoebe find you? Were you saved because of the rejuvenation pill that she got you?" "What are you talking about? I never saw Phoebe. It was my mentor who found a way to save me." Kevin was confused by this. In the days since he'd regained consciousness, he had purposely avoided using his phone or checking the news in order to fully focus on reconnecting with his mind, body, and spirit. Kevin, what did you say? Phoebe didn't find you? Lily was shocked and asked again. She clearly remembered that Truman had personally paid her a visit a week ago to inform her of Phoebe's upcoming marriage to Jared Hayes. While that was already surprising, what truly shocked her was finding out that Phoebe had agreed to the marriage in exchange for a rejuvenation pill to save Kevin. Kevin, you should go and see Phoebe. She sacrificed herself just to obtain the rejuvenation pill for you, Lily said in a low voice. Although she knew that Phoebe had always liked Kevin, she never confronted her about it. And as his wife, Lily naturally didn't want Kevin to be stolen away by another woman. But at the same time, she also couldn't bear to let Phoebe just quietly give up everything without ever having the chance to express her true feelings for Kevin. What's going on? Is Phoebe all right? Kevin finally reacted. He slowly began to realize that a lot of things had happened since he disappeared, so he had some catching up to do. After you were taken away by your mentor that day, we were all very worried for you. Dalton used all his connections to find you, but had no luck. Meanwhile, Phoebe agreed to marry the Hayes family's eldest son in exchange for a rejuvenation pill that would save you. But again, none of us knew where you were, Lily explained. Phoebe was willing to do all of that for me? Kevin stared at Lily in disbelief. Yes, so you must go to her now while there's still time, Lily reluctantly urged Kevin. While she was afraid of potentially losing her husband, she also couldn't bear the guilt of hiding this from him. Moreover, she knew that Kevin might never forgive himself if he only found out about this much later on. I have to stop her, Kevin shouted loudly as he turned around and quickly ran out of the apartment. When Kevin arrived at the Anderson family mansion, it was still drizzling outside. His taxi had broken down along the way, so he had to run the last 2 miles in the pouring rain just to get there. Sir, is Phoebe here? Kevin asked Truman, who had answered the door after he rang the doorbell. It looks like you've finally recovered, Truman replied very coldly. Why don't you come inside so we can have a chat? Sir, as much as I would like to exchange pleasantries with you, I desperately have to talk to Phoebe right now, Kevin said anxiously. I'm afraid you're already too late. Last night, the Hayes family had a private plane fly her to Detroit. But before my daughter left, she asked me to give you this letter. Truman took out an envelope from his pocket and then let out a heavy sigh as he handed it over to Kevin. Kevin's hands trembled as he opened the letter. It read, Kevin, when you read this letter, it means your life is no longer in any danger. I'm really glad that you're okay now. Anyway, I'm sure you already know by now that I agreed to marry a man from the Hayes family in exchange for a rejuvenation pill. Unfortunately, I couldn't find you once it was already in my possession. The letter continued. You may be wondering why I did it, and perhaps my only regret was that I never had the courage to tell you this in person. To tell you the truth, I don't know the exact moment when I fell in love with you. But once I did, there was no going back. Even if everyone kept calling you a useless son-in-law in my eyes, I've always known you to be a talented, gentle, and kind man towards me. And when you love someone, you must be willing to give your all for that person. Maybe you think that I'm silly, but if I was given the opportunity to do things all over, I wouldn't hesitate to stand by my decision to sacrifice myself for a chance to save your life. The letter ended with, Rest assured, I'm not asking for anything in return. In this life you already have Lily, and I wouldn't dare to destroy someone's marriage. Just promise me that you'll take care of yourself in the future and live happily with Lily. Love, Phoebe. When Kevin finally finished reading the letter, he suddenly felt his heart ache, as if he'd lost something important. He never knew that Phoebe had felt that way about him, and he wished they could have spoken in person so that he could respond. That silly daughter of mine is good at everything. Her only weakness is that she has her mother's heart. Once she falls in love with someone, she's willing to give up everything for him, Truman said sadly. Suddenly, Truman's eyes lit up once again. Judging by your reaction to her letter, I can sense that you deeply care about her. And now that she's the one who needs help, please, save her life. Long story short, the Hayes family is quite prominent, but their son Jared is simply bad news, so I don't want Phoebe anywhere near him. With the wedding less than 2 weeks away, I hope you can find Phoebe in Detroit and bring her back to Chicago. Since you didn't take the rejuvenation pill, perhaps there's still room for negotiation. Don't worry, I'll bring Phoebe back. Kevin's eyes were filled with determination, and his tone was very firm. He then carefully folded the envelope and put it in his pocket, as if it was his most treasured possession. After bidding farewell to Truman and leaving the Anderson family mansion, Kevin took out his phone and called Spencer. Spencer immediately picked up. "How can I be of service today, Enforcer?" "What can you tell me about the Hayes family?" Kevin asked. "The Hayes family is the second most prominent family in Detroit. Their background is similar to the Hill family. They have multiple businesses in their name," Spencer briefly explained. "How long will it take to destroy the Hayes family?" Kevin asked straightforwardly. "Enforcer, what did you say?" Spencer was surprised. "Do I have to repeat myself to make you understand?" Kevin raised his voice. "One day." Spencer didn't dare to say anything else. "All right, just stand by and wait for my next call," Kevin ordered, and then he hung up. Since the Hayes family wants Phoebe to marry their son so badly, I'll definitely need to give a big gift for their wedding. Just then, Kevin's phone suddenly rang. It was Miss Wilson. "What's the matter, Miss Wilson?" Kevin half-heartedly asked. His mind was still preoccupied about Phoebe and the Hayes family. "I'm glad you finally picked up. Williams Media is currently facing a very serious problem on all fronts. Vito Booker has already poached most of our company's artists. Various business partners have enacted the early termination options on their contracts. Stock price is at an all-time low. And with the company on the verge of bankruptcy, our employees' morale is at its lowest ever." Miss Wilson's tone was filled with anxiety as she gave a concise report. "Okay, I got it. Keep stabilizing the situation in the company. I'll get back to the office as soon as possible." Kevin couldn't help but frown at this news. "It seems that I have a lot of things to fix. Talk about making up for lost time." Sensing that Kevin was moved by Phoebe's letter, Truman asked him to save her before it was too late. After learning more about the Hayes family from Spencer, Kevin planned to give them a big gift on the date of the wedding. Suddenly, Miss Wilson called, updating him on Williams Media's dire situation. Realizing that a lot had happened in his absence, Kevin vowed to make up for lost time in saving both Phoebe and his company. Inside the luxurious private room at the Salix Leaf Hotel, there was a round table filled with people. Vito Booker, who was sitting between two beautiful women, took a big puff from his cigar. "Looks like Chicago will have a new leading company soon. Williams Media is about to go down." Vito Booker blew out a large puff of smoke. "Who does Kevin Williams think he is? He may be his company's CEO, but at the end of the day, he's just a young man. I still can't believe he actually dared to humiliate me like that at the banquet. This time I'll make sure to show him who he's going up against." "No one can compete with the Booker Phoenix Corporation," one of Vito's associates at the table chimed in. "At this rate, Williams Media will definitely file for bankruptcy any day now," another one sneered. "Boss, you don't have to worry too much about it," Vito's associate reassured him. "Didn't you hear? That was seriously wounded at the Healing Arts School's martial arts competition. Until now, it's unknown whether that guy is still alive or not, but he hasn't shown his face in weeks." A few of Vito's guests, representing some of the most influential families in Chicago, were sitting at a table nearby. When they overheard this exchange, they couldn't help but burst into laughter as well. "Letting that man like this is really letting him off the hook too easily." When Vito's voice fell, a familiar voice interrupted them. "I'm afraid you won't have that chance anymore." The room immediately became quiet as everyone stopped what they were doing. Who would dare to contradict Vito? "Who said that?" Vito looked around the room. Could it be who he was thinking? Suddenly the door was kicked open, making a loud noise that startled everyone in the private room. "Vito, did you already forget the taste of..." Why don't I remind you with another swirly? Kevin slowly walked into the room and looked at everyone. The rich people at the other table were now getting nervous, and beads of sweat began to trickle down their foreheads. The fact that they were present indicated that they also had something to do with William Media's downfall. Look who it is. The infamous CEO of Williams Media has finally risen from his grave, Vito mocked. Kevin, you're really lucky to still be alive, but what's the use of coming for me now? I'm afraid it's too late for that. Williams Media is finished. Vito Booker stared at Kevin, fuming with rage. Ever since their encounter at the Foreign Film Festival's kickoff banquet, he would get flashbacks every time he had to use a toilet. No one had ever humiliated him like that, and it continued to haunt him in his dreams. Is that man the son-in-law of the Jones family? One of Vito's snotty guests sneered. When they heard this, everyone in the room pointed at Kevin and burst into laughter. Kevin didn't pay attention to these people. Instead, he just looked at Vito with a cold expression in his eyes. What brings you here at this hour? Are you here to beg for mercy on behalf of your company? When Kevin didn't reply, Vito teased. Just a while ago, you were joking around when you made your entrance, but now you're so quiet and serious all of a sudden. What's the matter? Got your tongue? Kevin immediately made his move. Without saying a word, he walked right up to Vito. Williams Media is almost finished. Shouldn't he be begging for mercy? One of Vito's associates scratched his head. He's too arrogant to accept defeat. He doesn't deserve Vito's mercy. Another one commented. Vito flew into a fit of rage as he flipped his table over. He stood up and roared, Kevin, I've had it with you. You just screwed yourself over big time. Not only do I want to destroy Williams Media, but I'm going to chop your hands off tonight as well. My hands are right here. If you want them, then be my guest, Kevin exclaimed. Vito was so angry that the blood vessels on his forehead were popping out. As soon as he finished speaking, a few of Vito's bodyguards rushed in. How dare you cause trouble here? One of the bodyguards cracked his knuckles. With that, 5 or 6 bodyguards rolled up their sleeves and charged towards Kevin, while everyone else who was watching flinched and curled up in their seats. The bodyguards were at least 250 pounds each. How much strength did Kevin have to knock each of them out with a single punch? What are you waiting for? Vito ordered his other bodyguards. Hearing this, the other bodyguards had no choice but to pounce on Kevin. They decided to try their luck by going at him all at once, but Kevin simply shook his head as he raised his fists. In less than a minute, Vito's bodyguards were lying all over the floor. I just realized that it's getting kind of late. I still have some urgent matters to attend to. Another guest mumbled. All of a sudden, all of Vito's business associates and guests began running towards the door at the same time. Whoever dares to take one more step won't be shown any mercy. Kevin didn't even bother to look at them as he coldly warned them. Just like that, they stopped in their tracks, and no one dared to take another step forward. With their backs turned to Kevin, everyone fearfully froze in place, no matter how awkward their current positions were. Kevin, don't do anything reckless. We've already dealt so much damage to your company. If things continue like this, Williams Media will have no choice but to file for bankruptcy by tomorrow morning. No matter what you do tonight, you'll never be able to save it. Vito explained as he endured the intense pain in his stomach and stood up. Is that so? Why don't we play a game to test that theory of yours? Let's see if any of you can really afford it. All of you, turn around and get down on your knees. Kevin used this moment to scan the faces of all of Vito's business associates and guests. After following Kevin's orders, the people all looked at each other with obvious panic in their eyes. Kevin, do you know who you're going up against? We're all people with money and status. We don't kneel down to anyone, Nick Archer sneered. Then he said, We came here on behalf of the Quinn family in New York City, as well as Chicago's Archer, Butler, and Warren families. Kevin, if you know what's good for you, I advise you to take it easy and back off. If anything bad happens to us, you'll be facing the wrath of all of our families. Doug Butler raised his chin slightly and arrogantly as he threatened Kevin. In that instant, Doug suddenly thought of something. Even if Kevin was the CEO of Williams Media, his company was currently in a precarious situation. Without his business, he was just a son-in-law who definitely wouldn't dare to do anything to them. Or would he?
Kevin didn't blink, didn't speak. But somewhere, deep beneath that calm, something moved. A shadow. A trap. Not for them. For him. Because while Kevin was busy planning their downfall, someone else had already planned his. And they were closer than he thought. He came to burn down their empire. But has Kevin stepped into a war he can't see yet?
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.